But here's where it gets controversial. President Donald Trump's 100% pharmaceutical tariff, set to take effect Wednesday, is sparking a storm of reactions in the stock market and beyond. While the move is framed as a trade protectionist strategy, its implications for drug prices, manufacturing, and global supply chains are far from clear-cut. Here's what you need to know. The tariff targets branded pharmaceuticals from companies without U.S. manufacturing operations, creating a loophole for big pharma giants like Pfizer, PFE, Eli Lilly, LLY, and Amgen, AMGN. This means the industry has two main avenues to avoid the tax, either offshore manufacturing or relying on generic drugs, which are already the go-to choice for 90% of U.S. prescriptions. But this isn't just about cost. It's about control. If the tariff included generics, the pharmaceutical industry would face a seismic shift as domestic manufacturing capacity remains limited. Generic drug makers, who've long been the backbone of affordable healthcare, are now breathing a sigh of relief, though their future remains uncertain. Shares of IBD's Medical Ethical Drugs Group rose 1.5% after Trump's announcement, while biotech firms like Medtronic, MDT, and Biogen, BBG, saw gains of 2% and 1.8%, respectively. The broader biopharma ETFs also surged, reflecting investor anxiety over the tariff's potential to disrupt supply chains. Analysts warn that the tariff could exacerbate existing shortages, especially if generics are phased out. The warnings about drug shortages if generics were targeted by tariffs were very real, says Monica Gorman, a supply chain expert. If the administration had to address these issues, it would have faced a significant challenge. Yet the long-term consequences are more complicated than many realize. The U.S. is heavily reliant on foreign suppliers, particularly China, for antibiotics and other critical medicines. Trump's rhetoric about China's role in antibiotic dependence has sparked debates about national security. Gorman emphasizes that the tariff doesn't address the root causes of supply chain vulnerabilities. Pharmaceutical tariffs won't solve the deep-seated issues that make our supply chains fragile, she warns. They're just a temporary fix for a systemic problem. Meanwhile, the tariff highlights the fragility of global drug manufacturing. Fictive's Andy Sherman points out that centralized supply chains and reliance on single geographic regions make pharmaceutical production inherently unstable. Companies with diverse, distributed production options can weather shocks better than those tied to a narrow set of overseas plants, he explains. However, building a new manufacturing facility in the U.S. can take 5 years or longer, according to Gorman. In the near term, we'll see more companies turn to U.S.-based manufacturers with existing capacity, she says. But meaningful new output won't hit until the 2030s. For smaller biotech firms, the tariff poses a dual threat. Many rely on third-party manufacturers for drug production, often through licensing or acquisitions. If the tariff forces these companies to pivot to U.S. facilities, it could stifle innovation. The real risk is for small biotechs that may have to choose between funding science or investing in manufacturing, says Sherman. While innovation may be impacted, the pressure is more about resource allocation and outright cessation. The tariff also creates logistical nightmares for importers. Crowell's Gorman notes that active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, are rarely taxed, leaving questions about how accurately countries of origin are tracked. With the tariff, there's a lot to unpack about enforcement and compliance, she adds. So, will the tariff be a game changer or a catalyst for change? The answer depends on how quickly the U.S. can adapt its manufacturing infrastructure and whether the pharmaceutical industry can balance cost, quality, and global supply needs. As the debate continues, one thing is clear. The stakes are high and the consequences are far-reaching.